With the Avengers defeated and under the control of Carnage, the hybrid symbiote spawn of Venom team up with Carnage's spawn Scorn in Carnage U.S.A. What's up guys, Roman from RNS Entertainment here, and welcome to another episode of Comic History, the weekly video series where I retell, explain, and give context to the iconic storylines, origins, and events in the world of comics. In today's episode, we are continuing our multi-part series on Carnage U.S.A., the epic and ridiculous 5-issue Zeb Wells Clayton Crane Carnage miniseries that pits Carnage against Venom, Spider-Man, the Avengers, and 5 other symbiote characters, in a massive Carnage culmination that had been set up by the same creative team in the Carnage Family Feud miniseries directly beforehand. Family Feud saw Carnage's return to Marvel Comics after he was killed off by the Sentry 8 years prior, and immediately led into Carnage U.S.A. as a direct sequel. If you want to get caught up on the entire story so far, you can check out my 3-part series on Return of Carnage in Family Feud, and last week's episode which kicked off Part 1 of Carnage U.S.A. Our story picks up directly where Part 1 left off, with the Avengers, along with an entire Colorado town, under the control of Carnage, who had expanded his symbiote to a gigantic size to control the townspeople like puppets. Spider-Man, who Carnage intentionally did not take control of, begins to be easily overpowered by the symbiote-controlled Avengers, which include Captain America, Wolverine, The Thing, who isn't an Avenger but was called in to help, and Hawkeye, though Spider-Man notes that Carnage isn't exactly great at aiming with bows or with using Wolverine's adamantium skeleton. With all of the Avengers out of communication and an entire town under the control of a psychotic serial killer, the United States government explores their other options, first approaching Tanis Neves, the host of Carnage's most recent symbiote spawn, Scorn, whose origin we saw play out in the Return of Carnage storyline. The Scorn symbiote had been spawned into the high-tech prosthetic arm Tanis was given, and had never learned the difference between itself and the technology it inhabited, allowing Tanis to literally bond with machinery and incorporate it into herself with her symbiote. Tanis is approached by the general in charge, who says that she was once the victim of a prolonged mental attack by the Carnage symbiote, which occurred briefly in the origin of She-Carnage, and asks her if she would kill Cletus Cassidy if given the chance. Tanis tells him yes, which he says means she's ready. The general then introduces his second symbiote contingency, with Agent Venom AWOL from the government and Eddie Brock having sacrificed the anti-Venom suit in Spider Island. The government had come into possession of Agony, Riot, Phage, and Lasher, 4 of the 5 symbiote spawn of Venom from the iconic 90s Venom miniseries, Venom Lethal Protector, who had previously been combined together and joined with human host Scott Washington before he was murdered at the hands of the symbioteless Eddie Brock, along with Donna Diego, the host of the 5th Life Foundation symbiote, Scream. Following Scott's murder, the 4 symbiotes had separated and entered a nearly comatose state, allowing a special ops team called the Mercury Team to slowly train them to do specific specialized tasks, without any risk of the symbiotes overpowering them or bonding to them fully. The Mercury Team consists of Lasher, who has bonded to a trained war dog and has the ability to track Carnage or any other prey across a distance, Agony, which had been trained to lift the weight of an 800-pound chain gun for the team's heavy munitions expert, Phage, which gives the Mercury Team's sniper perfect eyesight and aim, and Riot, which grants super speed and agility to the team's recon expert. Meanwhile, Spider-Man manages to escape Carnage with the help from the few locals who had been able to avoid his control, being taken to the secluded and fenced-off estate of the rich Rousby family, which had owned the meatpacking plant Carnage used to feed his symbiote to such a gigantic size. Spider-Man also meets local Sheriff Eric Morrill, who we saw lose his family, including his newborn baby and young child, to Carnage in Part 1. He also finds out that the Rousby family had their own private zoo, which had powerful electric fences strong enough to ward off the Carnage symbiote. As the sun sets, the General gathers Scorn and the Mercury Team, debriefing them one last time and informing them that other than them, there is no backup coming, and that if they failed to defeat Carnage by sunup, the government would immediately bomb the entire town with napalm, willing to sacrifice the symbiotes, the Avengers, and all of the citizens of Doverton if necessary to stop Carnage. One of the Mercury team asks why Scorn isn't talking, and she says that it takes all of her concentration to hear their human voices over the whining and mewing of their broken symbiotes, which to her sound like defective kittens. That night, Carnage relaxes at the bar with Eric Morrell's family, who he has simply claimed as his own, letting his son play with the spider doppelganger like a pet while he forces the Avengers to play pool. Eric's wife Hannah manages to plead with Carnage to let her children go, and after breaking her will and making her promise to murder her husband in exchange for them, Carnage agrees, sending more of his symbiote around both her and the children, who laugh insanely. The Mercury team begin their search at the meatpacking plant, finding the spider doppelganger gnawing on the remains before being attacked and chased off by the Lasher symbiote dog. Phage follows the doppelganger's movements with his enhanced sight, which apparently allows him to see through obstacles as well because they are inside during the scene. Agony turns to Tannis, who is surveying the knives and tools in the warehouse for things to incorporate into her symbiote, which she calls window shopping. At the local church, Carnage forces the congregation to pull their own teeth out with pliers, which causes Captain America to strain and fight against Carnage's influence. Cap manages to tell him that he is going to put Carnage down, and Carnage replies to pray to his god that he doesn't make Cap help. At the Rousby estate, Spider-Man is awoken to Eric Morrell driving his truck through the gates, having seen his wife and children approaching seemingly by themselves. After Eric crashes his way through the fence, basically ruining any chance they have of staying safe, Hannah cries to him and tells him that they have to say goodbye now, and that this is the only way Cletus will let her keep the kids, covering herself with the Carnage symbiote and ripping the door off the truck. She tells her son to cover the baby's eyes, preparing to murder her husband until Spider-Man leaps through the truck and stops her. The Carnage symbiote covers the child and baby as well, throwing them into attacking Spider-Man, while Hannah tells Eric that she doesn't have a choice, that Carnage had promised to kill their children unless she kills him. Thinking of his children, Eric tells her to do it, but when she is unable to actually follow through with it, Carnage takes back over her, making her and the children run back to town to get eaten and murdered. Eric grabs Spider-Man, telling him that Carnage is going to kill his family, and Spider-Man looks him in the eyes and promises that he won't let that happen. The hybrid symbiotes use Doppelganger to track Carnage to the church, and when a Carnage-covered civilian throws themselves at them, the Phage symbiote briefly takes over its host and forces him to shoot it, showing that despite their nearly brain-dead state, the Life Foundation symbiotes still knew to instinctively hate and fear Carnage. They then notice that the Carnage townspeople aren't murdered by bullets, leading to Agony smiling and saying that's the best news he's heard all day, firing his chain gun into the crowd with a big smile on his face as the entire town of symbiote-covered people attack them all at once. In the church, Carnage drapes his arm over Captain America's shoulder, intending to force him to kill Hannah's children in front of her. But when the Mercury team causes the massive commotion outside, Carnage's attention is broken, allowing Cap to fight with all of his strength to temporarily free himself from Carnage's control, bashing his shield into Cletus's face and screaming into his communicator to dispatch his contingency in the Secret Avengers. In the headquarters of the Secret Avengers, the Venom symbiote forms over Eugene Flash Thompson, former Spider-Man bully turned paraplegic war vet turned Venom, who says that Cassidy was a hillbilly moron who couldn't handle his suit, and that both he and the Venom symbiote were looking forward to putting him down. And that is where we're going to wrap up part 2 of Carnage U.S.A., the sequel series to The Return of Carnage and Family Feud, and one of my personal favorite Carnage books out there. The artwork is insane, the story is excessive and dark and self-aware, as all good Carnage stories should be, and the fan service to symbiote fans is enjoyable, unique, and totally not overdone, using symbiotes that are usually not that well known or often utilized, and ignoring the much easier choices of bringing back Eddie Brock or the Toxin symbiote, who do become bonded shortly after this in the Agent Venom series, which I have covered in my Toxin Reborn episode of Comic History. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and subscribe to RNS Entertainment for weekly content, including comic history videos every Monday, and live podcasts every Wednesday and Friday. Also, make sure to go subscribe to my gaming channel, RNS Gaming, where I am posting 3 times a week as well, including Spider-Man PS4 live streams every Tuesday, and weekly episodes of my Skooma Dealer in Skyrim Let's Play series, which is heavily modded and a ton of fun. Episode 2 of that also dropped today and is up now, so go check that out as well. Carnage U.S.A. will continue next week on the main channel, where we'll see Venom, Scorn, and the hybrid symbiotes come up against Carnage. That's it for today's video, guys, and I will see you all next time.